Howdy, howdy! We are live on a Friday night, and now that Miss Taylor has completed hashtag Taylor's Star Trek mission, she is back on the show to give us her first time Trek takes on the Berman era. So I'm excited to talk to her about now that she's finished DS9 and Voyager and Enterprise and all of TNG and the TNG movies, and I have Joel and Rachel here to help me debrief her. And looks like there's already a couple people watching, so we can go ahead and get the show started. And we'll just, per tradition, go around the room and introduce ourselves. But I'm Fathery.
I'm Miss Taylor.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Joel.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 318th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek old and new. And tonight we are discussing Taylor's first time Trek takes on seeing the Berman era of Star Trek for the first time. For those who don't know, Taylor started watching Star Trek a little over a year ago in late January last year, 2024. In over 12 months, she finished the entire franchise. We watched all the shows, all the movies together in release order. And when we had her on the show previously, she was talking about her reactions to seeing the first half of the franchise. At that point, we had gone from the Star Trek of 1966 up until we were in like 1994, I think. So at that point she had finished the original series, the animated series, and TNG, but she was still working on the TNG movies. She still had not finished DS9 or Voyager and hadn't even started Enterprise. So she's now all the way caught up. She's seen everything, but she wanted to talk about just the Berman era specifically. And then on next week's show, she's going to talk about her reactions to seeing all of modern Trek over very condensed time frame just in the last couple of months. So looking forward to talking about that with her in just a moment. Before we get into that, just a little bit of quick housekeeping. As always, I need to give a huge thank you and shout out to the wonderful Tex-Trek Patreon supporters who make our show possible. So thank you so very much. Starfleet Sohel, Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutch Joanne Robertson, John Dodd, Geek Filter, Quark Spar, Stephanie Durantes, Matthew Averett, Braxton, Chuck A, Joel Vallis, Benjinium, Arthur Lamoureux, our associate producer Chris Garris, Dave Farabee, and our anonymous supporters. We do like to celebrate with our patrons once a month with a monthly Patreon watch party that we do in the Tex-Trek Discord. And our next one is going to be on Saturday, March 22nd. And if you come in at a Division 14 tier or higher, you get to be part of the rotation of selecting episodes. By the way, Joel, it's up to you. What episode are we going to watch on March 22nd?
Oh, you just told me that yesterday. I had to pick, so I'm not sure. Maybe I'll go for like 2 animated ones.
Okay, so
I like to do that.
We'll let y'all know soon what we're going to be watching on March 22nd. But you can come into the Patreon as little as $2 a month.
And another one,
but yeah, there's some other perks in there too if you can afford to be more generous. But thank you everyone who does support over there. And if anyone who's a bridge crew level supporter or higher has a birthday in March, please let me know. Because we're going to do some additional streams for those occasions as well. But with that out of the way, we do have a lot to talk about. The Berman era encompasses a lot of Star Trek. Like I don't know if it's true anymore, but for years, like the majority of Star Trek was created in the 90s. Like there was more made in the 1990s than
Yeah.
all the other decades combined.
Yeah.
There's a 26 episode a year shows. So, but we're gonna start off talking about TNG a little bit, just to refresh people's opinions, because Taylor hasn't been on here talking about TNG specifically, and it's been like a few months since your last appearance. We had a lot of fun last week talking about the different romances of all the different shows for Valentine's Day, but zeroing in on TNG just a little bit. Taylor, remind us, just tell us a little bit about like who were your favorite characters, or what like stood out to you in TNG, and what did you like and didn't like about that show? Seeing it for the first time last year.
Cool. So some of my favorite characters were Data and Worf, definitely. And Crusher and Pulaski. Pulaski took me some time to warm up to, but I do prefer Crusher as the doctor on board the Enterprise. But yeah, definitely loved Data like very quickly, like even straight off from like season 1. But some of the characters took me a long time to warm up to, specifically Wesley and Riker. I really could not get into Riker. Like I tried really hard to like be forgiving of his character, and I just never came around to liking him. So Picard, I had some ups and downs with. Like I really enjoyed him.
You used
in
to really
TNG.
like him.
Yeah, and I think the more I learn about him, the less I like him. So, I go back and forth with Picard. I liked him the most in TNG. So specifically, we're talking about TNG. Definitely liked him in a lot of those episodes. I'm sure I'm forgetting people. Geordi is in there. He's cool. Kind of a mid character for me. Like he goes, like sometimes he has really bad episodes and sometimes he has really great episodes. So I feel like his character arc kind of swings both ways for me. But yeah, I think definitely my favorites are Data and Worf, like overall.
Well, let's talk to you about like the TNG movies before we get into any of the other shows. So after seeing Generations through Nemesis, their 4 big screen outings.
Yeah.
Joel and Rachel, I'm curious if y'all have any questions about someone just watching these movies for the first time in this modern age. But
Yeah, hard to wrap my head around, but
Yeah, it's curious. I'm wondering how, just like with like older Star Trek, like how the movies aged for you, or like.
Yeah, how did these Berman era movies, like the TNG movies, how do they age? They're all from the 90s, except for Nemesis is what, 2002?
Yeah.
So I guess I'll just go each one. I think Generations was okay. I thought it was better than I expected. I had pretty low expectations for some reason for the TNG movies. Obviously, I think Insurrection was terrible. Like easily my least favorite. I still hate it. Every time we replay it, I'm like, please, anything else but this movie.
That's your least favorite of all the movies, right?
Yes, easily. Yeah, and they're like.
So when you watch it,
Troy,
time stops and stands still for.
It does, because you said that you thought it was the longest Star Trek movie ever, and I told you no, it actually has the shortest runtime. Well, I think Section 31 does now. I think Section 31 might be shorter, but
they had F. Murray Abrams, and they did that. That's so sad.
Yeah, so Insurrection was hard for me. I didn't think that one stood up at all. Like, there's a lot of really cringy stuff in that one that's really hard to watch. First Contact, I really liked. Like a lot. I think that was the strongest
your favorite
TNG.
since the Wrath of Khan. Sorry,
yes.
But like, you do you remember saying that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think if we were ranking all the movies, it would probably be third. For me, for the movies, the First Contact one, and then the last one, would be your number Nemesis, 2 favorite? Search for Spock. So I think Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, First Contact, maybe the Whale one. I'm not including the Kelvin movies; those are different. Those don't count.
Yeah, that's fair.
In this list.
We were wondering, by the way, we don't really know when to talk about the Kelvin movies, because it's like, well, they're kind of not modern Star Trek, but they're also definitely not Berman Star Trek. But
they're such a weird thing. They're
since the
Like-
fourth one is in development hell, I guess like we still have like 1 foot in the Kelvin
Yeah.
era. We haven't fully committed to like leaving the Kelvin era yet. So
I mean, I'm the queen of being like, I'll believe there's a fourth Kelvin movie when I'm like sitting in a movie theater. But hey, I used to say that about Wicked, and that actually happened. So
It's true. Yeah, it's sort of a weird. Yeah, it's like, does someone make money if it never gets made, but they still do? I don't know what the heck.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think my least favorite of them is Nemesis.
Oh, really? I actually kind of liked Nemesis. There was some weird things in it, but I thought it was fun to watch, and the story was kind of
At
interesting.
some point, there's also, if you've ever, I think there's a better movie of the deleted scenes of Nemesis than you get on screen.
Mm.
So that, and then also, I'm sick of watching Troy get mind assaulted.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does not stand up.
B4, I do like B4. He's like a little silly, but that's probably in Nemesis. That's probably like my favorite of the storylines.
Yeah, I was really surprised that they did like a I guess like an official Data death. Like I still don't think, like looking back, like now it's seeing all of it, like it's not. But like even then I wasn't really that distraught because I was like, well, B4 still exists and there's no way that Geordi doesn't have a backup of Data.
yeah,
like,
and you knew that there was like all these other like shows and stuff you hadn't gotten to yet. So you're like, oh yeah, he's gonna come back someday.
Yeah, he was like, you're not even sad a little bit, and I was like, no, he's not dead.
But at the time we didn't know. At the time, like we legitimately thought that could be the last time we ever see those TNG characters.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I thought it was. I thought there's no way in hell they're ever going back to those.
I thought they'd bring back the Dune buggy, but that was it. Just have Star Trek Dune buggies from then on.
I mean, they did in Lower Decks. So.
They did. Because I remember like when like that. I wasn't there, but when they Patrick Stewart announced he was coming back at Vegas, I was sitting at like a tabletop, like playing D&D with people, and I was like, "You're all nerds. You'll understand why I'm freaking out." Like,
and Nemesis 2 had Ron Perlman, and we barely used him. Trek gets the best actors.
I feel like that's the real Trek tradition: is really good actors for your villains and not using them well.
Yeah.
Although Taylor, I think that watching these movies so many decades later, like you didn't really like know a lot of these like the guest stars that they brought in for the movies. Like you didn't know Malcolm McDowell in Generations.
Oh wow.
Or
yeah, I'm not very good at. Oh, sorry.
F. Murray Abraham in Insurrection. Or but you did know you recognized Tom Hardy in Nemesis. It was so funny. Like before Shinzon steps out of the shadows, she says like, "Oh, this guy reminds me of Bane in Batman."
Yeah, and then he comes out in the light, and I was like, "It is Bane."
Yeah.
And then he breaks Picard's back.
Oh no! I don't think Tom Hardy looks anything like Patrick Stewart. I think that also should be out of Nemesis. Like he has the fullest lips in the world.
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart has the thinnest lips in the world. What happened to that man?
Yeah, totally.
The tough life of the Riemann mines makes your lips luscious.
Yeah.
There was some genetic modification actually. They wanted to like, give him a little bit of a different face.
For some reason, the Picard clone took lip fillers. We don't really know why.
He made a lot of questionable decisions.
The canonical explanation is that like he got beat up a lot in the Riemann mines, and so it like messed up his face.
It makes you pretty.
Yeah, gave him puffy lips.
Oh,
no, if you don't get a new robot heart, you just look prettier. That's just how it is. Now no one's talking, but that was fun.
No, I was laughing, and then I was reading what Sohel was putting.
So you said that First Contact was your favorite of the Rick Berman produced movies, and Insurrection was your favorite, and then it sounds like Nemesis is Insurrection is your least favorite.
And, you're so offended.
It's like incorrect.
But then it sounds like Nemesis is your second favorite.
I'd say third. I think I was First Contact, Generations, Nemesis, Insurrection. But the difference between Nemesis and Insurrection is like way different. Like if Insurrection could be like the 100th, then it could be that instead of 4th. You know
So
what I'm saying?
remind people, you watching all these movies for the first time in the 2020s, but seeing like the TOS movies that mostly came out in the 80s compared to like these like Berman produced movies from the 90s. How did the Berman movies measure up to the TOS era movies?
I don't know. I honestly feel like I like the Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, and the Whales one that I always forget the name of because it just called the
Voyage
Whales
Home.
one. The Voyage Home.
Well, that's like the joke. Like most people call it like the
one with
normies
the whales.
call it the one with the whales. Yeah.
I think that was a really strong trio. So like I do prefer like rewatching those three to any of the TNG movies. And I think most of my struggles really come with like the romantic attempts in these movies. Like I don't know. They just seem super forced and awkward.
That's why you became a Picard hater. You really wanted him and Beverly to get together, and you're so frustrated every time it doesn't happen.
It's so bad. Like I don't like that they do the will they won't they with Bev and Picard for the entire franchise. Like it's annoying. Like I feel really bad for like the Bev and Picard like hard shippers because that's got to be the most frustrating thing. Like I gave up. Like I was on the ship and I was like seeing what they were doing with it and I was like I'm getting off this ship. I don't want to sit here and like be pulled through this the whole time.
I think I was somewhere I was like if they ended up together great, but I'm not getting invested in this anymore.
That's exactly how I felt. And like I don't know, I felt like Picard had so many different romances and they were all really bad. Like I think the worst thing about Picard's character are his romance like storylines. So that really bothers me. I feel like he has such a bad commitment. Like he's no commitment. Like I don't know, just constantly.
I thought
like
Bosch was perfect because she was never going to commit. So
yeah, exactly. And he's like 100 years old and still can't commit. Like, are you kidding me? Like, Jesus, Picard.
If
like
you reach
maybe
100,
mature
you're not
a little
changing.
bit.
Yeah, I was because at the end of Picard season 3, I actually can't tell if they're together.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of ambiguous there at the end, but we'll have a lot of fun talking about that stuff next week when we talk about Taylor's reactions to modern Trek. But speaking of like the TNG movies, I don't know if there's like anything else you want to say about them before we. I know you have a lot to say about the show that we're going to talk about in a second, Deep Space Nine. But anything else on the TNG movies?
Yeah, I will say that the TNG. The First Contact movie made me like the Borg. I actually hated the Borg up until then.
You didn't like the TNG Borg, but after First Contact kind of upgraded them. Well, they got like a better look. They got like you said they were like scarier and more interesting.
Yeah, I think that was what I struggled with whenever it was like in the TNG episodes is I didn't think they were scary. And to be fair, I'm like an adult and like, I don't know, like they're just kind of walking around, like they can walk around them and they're like not a threat. So they have like ignore them.
They don't quit quite as hard when you're not like 12 and being like, oh my God.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, they have crazy body mod. That's not that weird. Like
filmmaker Jonathan Frakes was so good at making the Borg scary in First Contact.
And personifying them with the Queen. That was a major
giving them like one voice. I kind of am mixed on that. Like I like the idea of it being more of a collective mind than having like one individual representing the Borg. But I do think for the storyline that works very well. And does make them more intimidating and scary. But I don't know. It kind of feels like, when there's like zombie movies and they move slow, I don't think they're as scary, but the zombie movies where they move fast, like that's scary. And that's what I think.
What a youngin'. You're such a youngin'. Me and Joel are like, we like the classic Romero zombies that are slow moving.
Romero is God. It's true.
Start debating zombies.
I do like the remake of Dawn of the Dead. JJ was involved with that, right?
I do think also helps that like because you can afford better like lighting on a movie that the mood of that especially like I feel like you can really tell and you're like the Enterprise D has the interior sets have never looked better than in Generations. And then they're just scarier because the lighting is so much moodier in First Contact.
Yeah, and you have that dramatic score.
Like the rest of the Berman era post First Contact owes so much to that movie because they all the things that they built in that movie that they kept using, like all the Borg stuff that they used in Voyager, the black and gray uniforms that looked so great on Deep Space Nine in the later seasons. The establishment of like First Contact with Zefram Cochrane, which became the backstory to Star Trek Enterprise. It was like the rest of the Berman era really stood on the shoulders of First Contact. The beautiful Enterprise E sets that they used for the next couple of movies. You know, they got 3 movies out of the and Taylor, you like me, we're like the only 2 people. I swear to y'all, I didn't tell her to think this. She came up with this opinion independently of me, but neither of us likes the design of the Galaxy class Enterprise D. You believed the Enterprise E was like a big upgrade ship, right?
Yeah. The TNG ship is my least favorite for sure. So
I'll give one. I don't know if it's his least favorite, but the Enterprise E is also my friend RC's favorite. So there's a whole 3 of you.
When it like came out like in the late 90s, it was like my favorite show. I was so in love with it. But Taylor, let's talk about, so we were watching in release order. So when we were still working through TNG but got into season 6, we got to finally start our 4th Star Trek show, Deep Space Nine. And what were your initial reactions to DS9?
This one was really easy for me to like. I think I had a really hard time going from TOS to TNG with new characters and like
whole new aesthetic.
Yeah, and the first few episodes are really clunky and bad. So going into Deep Space Nine, and it just like was right off the bat, I felt really well written, and the characters were so strong like immediately. I felt like it kind of knew what it was doing faster than TNG did. And so I was able to like believe it and be super into the storyline quicker. And Avery Brooks as Captain Sisko was my like immediate love of that show. Like I really enjoyed his interactions with his son, and I thought it was so positive and like really great representation of single fatherhood, especially like as a Black lead, like as a single man, like raising his child with love and affection. I think that is amazing. And I don't think we get enough of that. So it was so cool to see, and really loved like how that like trait of care and affection in some ways lead into his like professional relationships. Like there's so many times where Sisko is talking to them as their captain, but then he's like, but as your friend, blah, blah, blah. And I think that is very cool to like that he has like that double persona. Like he has this professional persona, but he also has this care and like friendship underneath that. And I think he's such a great father figure for so many people on the show. So I think it's overall, like that's definitely like the first thing that I noticed like in episode 1, and it really just shined throughout the entire show.
Were there any like particular scenes or episodes with Sisko that really stood out that you want to highlight?
Yes, there was one I was talking to you about with Worf and Jadzia when they were fighting and she almost dies on the planet. Oh, this was late, like season 6, and he
change
is
of heart,
basically
right?
like he's basically like, is he gonna abandon Jadzia or is he gonna stay with her and save her? And he chose to stay with her and save her. And like Captain Sisko was basically like, this was wrong and you were going to have like this on your report. And then as an aside, he was like, I would have done the same thing. And I was like, yeah. Like,
he's
I'm
like, if
so
that was
happy.
Jennifer, I would have done that too.
Yes, because like I want that. Like I don't want my partner to abandon me when I'm like dying alone. That's horrible. So like I love that both of them were so supportive of, you know, their relationship.
I think
well, go ahead, Joel.
I was just gonna say, I think they took the sort of wonky writing of Wesley and TNG, and they built Jake on top of that. And oh my God, is the work. It's just
I love
his father Sisko too, but both characters, it works. It's just so great.
I love Jake as the character. And they use Jake the right amount. They never tried to like shoehorn Jake into episodes where he didn't fit the way I feel like
he doesn't just solve every episode.
Yes.
Heavily.
Like That's what I was talking to Steven about too, because when Wes came on, I didn't like Wes at first in TNG because he was so just invasive and like snooty, has like this, very entitled attitude.
And he
And-
would always like save the
Right.
day in like season 1. It's
Yeah.
like, the flagship of the Federation has to be saved by the 14-year-old every week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Shut
so
up. He's a Time
awkward.
Lord Traveler. He can do it.
But yeah, whenever we had Jake on, I think I had told Steven, I was like, oh, they're really dialing back the child actor. Like they're letting him grow into the role instead of like
Yeah.
with Wes, like they really had Will Wheaton like full force, like episode 1, like having 100 lines or whatever, and like a big part of the plot. And now it's like, oh, let's dial back that and see how the kid does first, and then we'll give them lines and make them part of the plot. And I think that was really smart to do. So I love that they learned,
Yeah.
from TNG to DS9. And
Part
also
of that was
kind
Avery too, though.
Oh,
They
yeah.
dialed back Jake, and then Avery's like, he's ready. Give him more. And they're
Yeah,
like,
I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And Taylor, you and I, we've been to a few Star Trek conventions now, and you've gotten to see like a lot of the Star Trek actors, and that's something that me and Joel just heard Cirroc Lofton talk about. Joel, I don't remember if you were at that panel. Did you go to the Cirroc Lofton panel?
Oh yeah, it was like a one-man show. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't take any questions.
sounds
He just,
great.
but he
He
largely
monologued.
talked about Avery Brooks and
Aw.
how
Yeah.
just like talking about how much he loves him and how big of a relationship they had offset as well as
And the things he didn't
on-
even know
on
he
set.
did until later.
Mhm.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting. It might bother you about that more later. I was like, tell me everything.
It was amazing.
Well, I
yeah,
also like how they brought the child acting in, like with Nog. I mean, I guess he was older than Jake, but I thought Nog was such a great character, and he was developed so well. And like the episode where he decides to become Starfleet, it feels so abrupt to the audience and like to Cisco and stuff. But then the full commitment that Nog gives, and then like his character change and growth is so good. And when he loses his leg and like has to go through all of the PTSD and like healing and like get a new path and become confident again, I just love everything they did with Nog. I think that was such a strong character, and again, such a young actor. So I think they did. I mean, I think every single actor on DS9 is honestly really good, but some of them shine like extremely well. And I thought that I'm forgetting his name right now, but Nog's actor was extremely good.
Aaron Eisenberg.
yes.
Thanks.
I was thinking of a good Cisco scene. His scene with Cisco when he explains like why he wants to join Starfleet is so good.
Yes, and then it's cool because he inspires Rom back. So I think it's
Yeah.
cool that you have that yo-yo like between the
Yeah.
father-son relationship. So it's like, oh well, Rom sees that his son is becoming more, and then like eventually he stands up to Quark and ends up joining, for with Chief O'Brien. So I think that's really awesome that you have like that extra inspiration like both ways.
But you were just talking about how you started liking like the Cisco Jake relationship immediately. Like it really didn't take you that long to like warm up to Deep Space Nine. Like you kind of liked
Yeah.
it like right out of the gates.
Yeah, I
So-
loved Quark and Odo in the first episode when they're having their frenemy banter for the first time. I was like, I love this. Like, I love
Yeah.
when he's like catching Quark doing something. And Quark's like, "Oh, you caught me!" Like, it's so cute, and like it just goes through the whole show. And like, I love how much all of the characters support each other. Like sometimes begrudgingly, but they all are like this really big weird family, and I love. It's just so good.
Oh yeah, we need a copy.
Yeah.
Have you seen the GIF or the little JPEG? I know I'm going to explain it badly. It goes through like everyone in there, and then it's just like, and then they point to Cisco. It's like, and that's Space Dad.
Yeah.
And it's hard. I'm explaining it badly, but it's out there. and
I
it's
know what
heartwarming.
you're talking about. So
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
The meme that DS9 is a polycule, and like
Yeah.
It is.
you have like Keiko and her husband O'Brien, and then O'Brien's boyfriend Garrett or Bashir, and Bashir's boyfriend or husband Garrick, or like
Garrick,
but it
yeah.
basically has like
Yeah.
everyone connected except
Yeah.
except for Cisco. He's just like the dad.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's like a sense of community to it, and there are so many characters and recurring characters and stuff. It's like Deep Space Nine really feels like a place. It's like a location. Like
It's early in the second season. The scene, it's part of that like 3-part opener, and I can't remember exactly which episode. I think it's the second, when they're like all coming to tell Kira they're gonna miss her. I just have this like strange, like no one understand what the conversation is. It's like, honestly, I was sitting there, I was like, this is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And all
Yeah,
these
people
are
just
so
keep
good.
showing up. Like the
Yeah.
whole cast is eventually
Yeah.
in Kira's quarters before
Yeah.
she can leave.
Yeah. And Bashir just seems so confused. He's like, what's going on? He's like, I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, they have so many supportive episodes. Like if you think about the Trill episode where Jadzia like has to meet all of her previous hosts.
Oh, yeah.
So each of them take a part in that. And then you have when Worf is trying to get Jadzia into Tovacor and they all participate in that. Like there's a lot of like, hey, I need this thing done and I need a lot of you to help me do it. And like they all sign up for it. So there's a lot of support in the show.
What did you think of seeing TOS Klingons in DS9?
That is a great question.
I probably honestly would have totally overlooked it if Steven hadn't been like, remember this guy. Like, when we were watching it in TOS.
Just their voices alone.
Yeah.
Just their voices alone are so ingrained in me that it I left my body the first time.
Yeah.
You're
It was
like,
really fun.
I kept talking about like Kang and Kor and Koloth though, like so that she wouldn't forget about them. I would just like every couple of weeks I would mention one of them or something.
You should.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just like, why?
I love those actors.
He's like, why does he keep bringing this up? Like,
yeah, I was thinking that. I was like, this is important. Or like when we were watching in the original series and he's like, oh, an Andorian. Oh. And I'm like, okay. And like this one-off episode. And now that I've seen everything, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a lot of Andorians. So I get why he was excited and trying to point it out to me early.
But what was that experience like because we were going in release order, we always had another show overlapping on top of Deep Space Nine. We were either toggling back and forth between TNG and DS9 or between Voyager and DS9.
Yeah, honestly, not my favorite because I loved DS9 more than TNG and Voyager. And so I was a little bit grumpy when we had to go back and leave the station and go to either the Enterprise or to Voyager. Yeah. And sometimes like in release order, we would get like 3 DS9 episodes and I'd be like, oh, this is so wonderful. I'm having such a great time. And then he'd be like, and now 4 TNG episodes or whatever, and I'm like, no. Like I just want to watch it all straight through now. So I think like the next time we watch, I'm gonna really want to do like the whole series straight through instead of like teeter-tottering, which I'm really excited about, especially for DS9 and for a lot of the modern shows, because we did release order for modern shows too. So I think it'll be good to see everything linearly next time around.
Thank you, Tom Casey, for the super chat.
Thank you so much, Tom Casey, for the $5 super chat. Tom Casey says, just wanted to stop by and say hi. So thank you for that.
I'd say I'm impressed because I've never done complete release order because I would be like, no, I just want to watch Deep Space Nine and I just want to stay on Netflix and watch Deep Space Nine.
Yeah,
I've rewatched everything in like 10 months, but I did it by show. I didn't go back.
But my preferred way to rewatch Star Trek is to do it in chronological order. But then when you do that, you still have to bounce back and forth between DS9 and TNG and Voyager.
So I'm going to be vouching for a straight through at some day.
I like the chronological order. How do you do Discovery? Do you just like halfway through be like, we'll catch up to this?
Yeah, watch 2 seasons and then watch all of Strange New Worlds, TOS, TAS, TNG, DS9 Voyager, Picard, your Lower Decks Prodigy Picard, and then watch the rest of Discovery. It's like a Discovery sandwich.
Podcast was trying to do like Star Trek completely in chronological order, but mean like anytime there's a time travel episode, like pop that where it should be. So then it would be like randomly.
No, that's too hard.
We have to go to the 90s. And I was like, no.
That's the 4-dimensional order. And let's be on my linear time person thing.
Sometimes you don't have like a date on something. Like the flashback to like Tuvok and the Vulcan Master that we get in the episode of Voyager Gravity. It's like I don't. That could be like between like Star Trek 2 and 3, or maybe it's between like the motion picture and Star Trek 2, or like who the hell knows? You know, there's no date assigned to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that'd be weird to do.
I remember that I was like reading their order and immediately went back. No, I can't deal with any of this.
Yeah, I don't care that much about the chronological order, I don't think.
At some point, you're just doing it to do it a different way than you have before.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
I mean, it's not really important, but
I was gonna. Oh, sorry.
I was just trying to think of like what characters of Deep Space Nine we hadn't talked about yet.
I was just about to say that I think that Deep Space Nine has some of the best villains in Star Trek that I've seen. Like, I really, really loved / well, like not loved, like I hated, but loved to hate Gul Dukat and Kai Wynn.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Gul
both
Dukat
of them,
is movie level.
so good. Like the development of like him just getting worse and worse and worse is so good.
I know.
And then, oh my God, he did that.
Yeah.
I remember what someone was like starting Deep Space Nine, and I called Dukat Space Hitler, and they were like, "Is he?" And then I was like, "No, watch the show." And they came back and like, "Oh, I get why you called him that." And I was like, "No, he was actually involved in
Poland, but other than that,
yeah, like,
yeah." And I love the slow burn of Kai Wynn. Like, I mean, we all like kind of hated her. Like, she kind of was terrible like throughout, but she didn't really become epically horrible until the last season, you know, where she really just like leans into it. She's like,
and she had the opportunity. She had the opportunity to be like a good guy there when Kira was like, yeah, just like resign and step down. And Kai Wynn was like, well, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I will literally make a deal with the devil before I do that.
Not till the prophets talk to me.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not going to talk to me? Well, I'm going to, okay, pirate.
Yeah, and I think what was such a relatable thing is that it's such a realistic trait, to have like this entitlement and narcissism like in a place of power. And I think Gul Dukat and Kai Wynn both exemplify that like amazingly. Like it's so scary because it's so realistic.
Yeah, there are certain people in power right now that remind me a lot of those two characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, Louise Fletcher is so good. That I remember at one point I was watching Deep Space Nine. My mom is not into sci-fi. Walked by and she's like, is that Nurse Ratched? And I'm like, yes. Like,
even worse than Nurse Ratched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nurse Ratched was nasty, but on a very small level to a one ward. This is like a whole planet. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just saw Aaron's comment, and that is so funny.
She knows that's the street Oscar. That's the street Oscar.
Taylor, what surprised you about Deep Space Nine as the story unfolded?
Was it Morn? It was Morn.
Like with the Dominion War, or with like where the characters ended up at the end. Because you were really invested. You were like so worried about how things were going to wrap up.
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise for me was Jadzia's death. And I know that mostly was because of off-screen reasons, but I think that was definitely the biggest shock. I was also shocked that Miles was in the show. I thought that was like one of the first shocks for me.
Yeah, because I didn't tell you much like about anything, because like you hate...
Yeah.
Another thing we have in common, we both really hate spoilers and like to go into things as blind as possible.
Father's tongue was like black for an entire year as he bit it to keep from saying stuff.
It was interesting because by the time I watched Deep Space Nine, like the fact that he had died had been spoiled for me because like I was in Star Trek spaces.
Yeah.
And I was like,
infamous. It's just
and it was also because I had known about it as someone who's interested in behind the scenes stuff. Is like the story is like, this actress wasn't treated that well, and
yeah, I was also surprised at Worf joining. I didn't know he was going to come in season 4, so that was a really fun surprise, and I was very excited because I love Worf so much from TNG, and I think he did so much better in DS9. So I really loved that.
I always say that Deep Space Nine Worf would beat up TNG Worf.
Yes, totally.
He
has Captain Sisko on his side.
How excited were you when he just like walked into Deep Space Nine then?
I was like, what is coming? I was like, I remember it kind of happens before the credits, and I was like, oh, a cameo. And then in the credits, his name was in the title card, and I was like, he's going to be a regular? And Stephen was like, you don't know that. And I was like, I do know that. It's in the title card.
Damn you, title cards.
Yeah, he was like, man, I was hoping that would be like a little bit longer of a surprise.
Oh yeah, like at the end when they're like, why don't you just stay on the station?
Yeah. So. Yeah. But I thought that was great.
You had like a little bit of a nervousness every time we would start a show. Like when we went from the original series to the animated series to then when they started doing the TOS movies, and then like, okay, time to start like this new show TNG, and you were like, I don't know if I'll like Star Trek if it's not like Kirk and Spock and McCoy and Scotty.
Yeah.
And then you were a little scared going into DS9 about meeting new characters, but you liked those people very quickly. Before it even got into like what I think is like some of the strongest stuff in the show. So
Yeah.
Well, Emissary is so good too. That helped a lot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's because I always
Really gets you into
people
it.
feel like, oh, like the first season or first 2 seasons of Star Trek are usually really bad. I was like, I think Deep Space Nine's first 2 seasons are really solid.
Deep
It's
Space
like-
Nine's not like that.
It gets better, but it started good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Star Trek Voyager though, you were really worried about like meeting those people, but I think Janeway won you over immediately.
Yeah.
You were always like
really-
on board Janeway.
Yeah.
You got
I
over the
remember-
banjos in the first episode.
Yeah. The first episode was kind of weird.
Shout out to
but,
Salon Trek last night. Did Caretaker. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember
Episode's
like what
a
her
bit dry.
first lines were, but like as soon as she started talking, I was like, oh, she's cool. Like,
Yeah.
I admire her. She's really interesting. And she's like,
oh,
she's got that confidence and like
Mhm.
assertiveness that I really like. And still has like that softness to her. So I think she's just really well written, kind of like right off the bat. I thought she was very relatable and very cool. Not all of the characters though. I didn't like a lot of the characters in Voyager very much. I really struggled with some of them.
Okay, tell us who you liked and who you didn't like in Voyager.
Well, I really wanted to like Tuvok. Like I really wanted to, and then he kept being kind of a turd, and like I was like,
you
I
mean
don't know if I like
Vulcan?
him.
That's horrible of
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
He's just being
And-
Vulcan.
Yeah, what I realized is that he's just very pessimistic, and I didn't like that. And so he kind of grows and becomes a little bit more optimistic and cool. But
You actually said when we started watching Enterprise, you were like, "Oh, I like Tuvok now that I see how big of jerks these Vulcans
yeah,
are." Tuvok
I was
actually
like,
wasn't that
oh,
bad.
I get it.
Tuvok is a softie compared.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm kind of like we had Tom Paris and Kem and B'Elanna and Chakotay, and I thought they all started kind of weak. I don't know. I just really wasn't rooting for any of them. I didn't really know like who was gonna stick. Like I don't know why, but when I was first watching Voyager, I like in episode 1, episode 2, I didn't know who was gonna be actually there for the whole season. Like I kind of was thinking like any of them could die very quickly, like because the very first
Right, you had seen
scenes in
Tasha
Voyager,
Yar and Jadzia be
Yeah.
killed off. So
yeah, but also
Well, you
like,
do
in-
see a lot of the original crew die. so
yeah,
it's
that's
true.
what I'm
The
trying
first
to say.
episode,
Yeah, the first
So it's like,
episode
is
we
this going
lost
to be
a lot
like
of
The
people.
Walking Dead? Are they just going to be
Yeah.
like whittling down this cast constantly?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that. Yeah,
I was like, in retrospect, the fact the Voyager cast stays as intact as it does not make sense.
yeah. So I definitely, they had good character arcs. A lot of them did grow on me. Some of them not so much. Like I think Chakotay was very dry the whole time, and
Yeah.
I don't know. Like now having seen Robert Beltran in some panels, like I kind of feel like there's a little bit of like that dryness.
Well, at least
just
we
in
have
general.
Prodigy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so Harry Kim, I think kind of an annoying character. I think he was good, but I guess not annoying is not the right word, but he feels like kind of like a pest sometimes and like a little bit like a sibling energy, which isn't bad, but for me, like some of his episodes weren't very strong and I had a hard time like relating with some of his problems and growth episodes. So that one was kind of tough. But I think that Tom Paris and B'Elanna had some really good episodes, but it took some time to get there. I feel like we didn't really have good episodes for them until like season 3 or 4. And then even better episodes when they became a couple. I think that really like improved their character growth and having some focus on them.
what about Neelix and Kes?
Oh, I forgot about them. I think whenever they came up in like the second or third episode, I was like, oh, they're like part of the show. Like I think I turned to Steven and I was like, I thought we were done with them. I thought they were staying like wherever they were, like in Algonquin or whatever. But Yeah, it took some time for me to warm up to them. Like I thought they were so
Neelix
cool.
better. Neelix does get better, but
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it was really rough at first. I thought they were cool for like the first episode they were both in together, but I wasn't as super pumped about them whenever I realized they were going to be in all of the episodes.
Yeah.
And like there were some things I liked about both of them and a lot that I didn't like about both of them. Definitely love the Talaxian design though. I like the spots and the mohawk for all of them. I think that is super fun and colorful.
Did I tell you what Michael Westmore based
Yeah,
that
and
on?
I really wish you hadn't because I enjoy the design more. Not
Do y'all know
knowing
this?
their-
Do y'all
I
know
think
this
you better
story?
remind the listeners. I'm
I-
not sure.
So,
Yeah, I don't think I know.
The
You don't wanna know.
1990 was it 1994? The summer Disney movie was The Lion King, and the most popular characters in that movie were Timon and Pumbaa. And Michael Westmore saw that movie and was like, "Oh, they have a cool look. I'm gonna combine those together to create the look of Neelix the Talaxian."
I told you
Well,
didn't
he
want to
was
know.
like- He was like, I'm going to create a weird combination of a warthog and a meerkat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
he
put
basically
that in
he
Star Trek.
two-vixed them together. We did.
Well, he
talk
is the
about
master,
this.
so I guess he can do
Oh,
that. I
God.
don't know.
We mentioned this when you were on the show before, Taylor. But just remind people, where did you fall on the Tuvix argument? Did Janeway do the right thing? Yes or no?
Yes. I don't want to dive into it again, but I do agree that the correct thing was
We'll have
done.
a whole hour later to do.
But that
Yeah.
I think the majority of people actually agree that Janeway was in the right to separate them.
From my experiences going out there is that most people do agree she was in the right, and then people who want an excuse to be misogynists use it for that purpose.
As you know from cosplay.
Yeah.
Yep, as I know
remember that
from
story.
That the story people already know. Yeah.
But talking about characters being like a little dry, like the Doctor, the EMH, like starting off, he's kind of like dry as a bone in his first few episodes, but he ends up becoming the most kind of fleshed out of that entire cast by the end of the show, and has a tremendous arc. What did you think of Bob Picardo's Doctor?
Yeah, I thought that was a really great character. Super loved his growth and I don't know, like him just constantly developing and like becoming more and more than a hologram was really cool. And he gets so many great stories. And I think, I mean, there's like definitely a heavier lean on like Janeway stories, EMH stories, and 7 of 9 stories. So, I mean, it's kind of unfair to the other characters when I'm like, oh, they don't have as great storylines, but like they don't have as many either. But yeah, I think that EMH has some really fun stuff. I love that it's kind of a discovery of his personality and his interests throughout the show. And kind of like, I don't know, like he's like a professional doctor. He's very smart and intelligent and has like a whole role. But then he gets to like discover his interests in things that aren't necessarily like requirements, I guess. And so it's neat. And I did like having like a hologram doctor. I think that was such an interesting choice to have like on the ship to kill their like actual like their lead scientist, their lead doctor, whatever, and having to have the full-time hologram. Like I think that was really an interesting choice and really fun to play
in
with.
the 90s, everyone was just like, oh, they're doing a Red Dwarf, because Red Dwarf, I don't know if you've ever seen Red Dwarf, but one of the characters dies like in the first episode because they sort of jump way into the future, and his hologram, like they sort of preserve him, and he's just a hologram. Rimmer is just a hologram, and everyone I remember overhearing at Star Trek conventions when I was in high school, people were like, "Well, that's just Rimmer. They're just going to have a show with Rimmer," and that was like sort of before we saw anything. Yeah, it was just like a year before, but then he comes up so much, better, and not Rimmer's not great. I love Rimmer, but completely different.
Do you remember explaining the plot of an episode of Voyager and explaining like why they have a hologram doctor to a friend of mine, and she's just being like, "That's so dark," and I was like, "This isn't even considered the dark Star Trek show."
No,
even darker. He has a holographic kid who only listens to Klingon stuff. It's weird.
I think the episode I did describe, because I was like, I said something about crying in a Star Trek episode. It was the episode where like he has the hologram family and his daughter dies.
Of real life.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah. So affecting.
Taylor, you liked
Yeah.
that one, like most people do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
that was a good strong
I
one.
think Jill, because I had described it as like from that where the hologram had died, but also the fact that their entire medical staff died, which is why they had a hologram doctor.
Yeah,
My friend considered that dark, which, to be fair, I don't think she's wrong.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think it
Okay,
was cool to have Kess like come in and work with the doctor too, because I thought
Yeah.
she did have like that interest and curiosity and stuff. And I love that they took her through a few journeys too. Like she kind of looked into each department a little bit and like kind of settled in there. But yeah, I really liked the EMH. And then of course, like once we get 7 of 9 in, I think
Yeah, we're
that
waiting
really it improved the whole show. I
Yeah.
think they needed like that boost. Like she had like
Yeah.
this energy boost and this like, you know, kind of like scary, not scary, but like, you know, like the Borgness that, you know, you're you're kind of scared. You're like, what's gonna happen? There's so many
But
things to
she's,
play
like,
with.
not in a bad way, but she's like intimidating in a way that's
Exactly.
like, fresh for
She
the
is.
show.
Yeah. And everyone's kind of walking on eggshells around her at
Yeah.
first. And I think that's such an interesting concept. And then they're all warming up to her. So it's cool to see like the warm up episodes. So you get like the EMH like reaching out and like trying to form a bond. And like I think they have some great episodes together, the two of them.
It's something that
Yeah, it's some of the best.
it's something that me and Dave used to talk about on the show a lot, but like a lot of these casts in Star Trek, you need like a little arch because it can be like, you know, so like everyone is so chummy and buddy and everyone gets along, you know, like Gene
No
Roddenberry had
interpersonal conflict.
that
yeah.
entire philosophy about that. But a lot of the shows are, you know, benefiting from those characters, like, you know, Deep Space Nine, by having so many like non-Starfleet people, and you can have like this ex-terrorist and this bartender criminal and this deputy Odo and those people. Voyager really didn't have that, even though it was supposed to, from the beginning, it was supposed to be kind of like, oh, we're gonna have like these rough and tumble Maquis people, these renegades on board the ship, but they kind of
One
immediately
episode.
they all fell in line and under
It's
Janeway.
They say
Yeah.
Maquis, but Tuvok wasn't actually Maquis.
Right.
Chakotay was an ex-captain, and then B'Elanna
B'Elanna
was like,
a washout cadet. So.
yeah. So
No, it's all the people you never talk to in the crew
Yeah.
that they were
Yeah.
lucky.
Yeah.
They're very
Yeah.
upset.
They were a very Starfleet ship, so having 7 on there is kind of, you know, like
Broke it up.
the Borg outcast.
Well, I think that episode where Tuvok had made the hologram of like the Maquis mutiny was such a fun episode.
Yeah.
I think
Worst case scenario, I believe.
Yeah, that was a really fun episode. And I called it that it was Tuvok's hologram or holodeck program.
Yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
kind of a mystery. Is like, who made this? And Tuvok was like, "Oh,
But
it
I
was
was
me."
like, it makes sense because he's the security guy.
Yeah,
Like, he's like
security,
running
yeah.
simulations. I was like, that's what's going on. And I thought that was such a fun, like, who done it like episode, but also it was fun to kind of see it different ways that the episodes could have played out. So it was cool to also get like some Seska back and like some of that Maquis drama. So I don't know. I really
brought
liked that.
Seska back a couple of times because she comes back there, and then the episode Shattered, where the different decks of the ship are in like different time periods.
Yeah.
Then, like,
Seska is amazing.
Yeah.
I like how she kept coming back, like post her death. There were still these fun ways without
like-
resurrecting her, they were still able to sneak her back into the show.
It was clear that they were like, this was just a fun villain. Can we just keep bringing her back somehow?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Seska and then Brad Dourif. They were like the really creepy Maquis people, and that was, you know.
Oh yes, Suitor, our psycho Betazoid, who ends up, you know, helping them recapture Voyager. So
Yep. I thought that was a great way to bring a one-off character back. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, that was great.
what about
I thought it was funny when Voyager would be like, "Oh, this character's still here." By the way, I'm like, I assumed he was dead because we haven't seen him
He's
in
just
6
been
years.
locked in his quarters.
Yeah.
He's
I don't know
grounded.
How long was that?
Well, it could have easily been like we just never talk about him again, like the Borg baby. You know, remember when they had like that Borg baby also that never gets talked about, never gets mentioned. I guess what about like the ending of Voyager?
Or wait, should we talk about villains first?
Oh,
yeah, are there any
didn't
other
really-
villains that stand out other than Seska?
There
You
were
want to
some
mention?
lame ones. In
Yeah. Okay.
So, what did you think of the Kazon?
Yes,
yeah,
that was the
Kazon-
lame ones. There were some other great ones, but
I don't know, like the cabbage head was a lot for me. There was a
Mm.
really great episode with Aaron Eisenberg as a Kazon. That one I really liked.
Yeah.
But that was like the only Kazon one I really
Initiations.
That
I think that's
episode's really good.
Initiations.
Yeah,
Although
that
I
was
do
fun.
remember the first time I like hadn't look, I didn't know he was in that episode, and then he talked, and I was like, "That is Nog." Like,
Yeah. I think I had the same thing. Like as soon as he spoke, I was like, "Hey, that's Nog."
yeah,
Okay, so yeah, the Herosians I thought were just I don't know.
Mhm.
Like, so we've actually been watching
They look
Alien
good,
and
but-
Predator now,
Yeah.
and I'm just now realizing like how much they're like the Predator. So I don't know. Like,
my
I think
favorite
I like
Herosians
them.
are definitely, I can't remember the name of the episode, but they put them in the World War II like holodeck.
yeah, I hated that.
Well,
I
Well,
I
you
watched
hate
a-
World War II.
They're
Taylor
good and
hates
bad
World War
things
II
about
in
that.
general.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love the costumes. Oh my
Yeah.
god, everyone looks amazing in those suits.
I think
oh god,
I'm currently watching a show about vets during. Well, it's set in the 30s, and then it's clear. I was like, well, it's the 30s and in England, so something's about to happen.
yeah, Janeway and Seven in those episodes just look,
Yeah.
oh my
So
god.
I, as someone who dresses vintagey, I'm like, does this make sense? No, but show me all the cool 40s clothing, please.
Right.
Yeah.
Another villain I like kind of hated, but also thought was gross and interesting. The Vidians, the
The
Viridians.
Vidians.
Oh,
Vidians.
yeah.
Vidians, the organ snatchers.
Yeah.
There's
Oh,
some
that
fun
one,
makeup. Very
that
fun
one
makeup.
like
Actually-
made me cringe and like want to throw up. Like,
It's
it was
body
really
horror.
gross.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's body horror.
The same thing with the Borg, but when they do anything that involves like taking the face of another person,
Yes.
so creepy.
Mhm.
Like nothing is creepier to me than like seeing like someone you saw previously not a Borg, and I'm like, nope, no, thank you.
Yeah. And then I did like species 8472 at first because it was very like, oh, we're scary and bigger than the Borg. But then they
Afraid.
kind of, I feel like they dropped the ball on that species.
Yeah.
Like it kind of became like less interesting, and they just, I don't know, it didn't really come up that much after. So
Then they became changelings, yeah, and then
yeah.
So
Yeah, that was
who were your
weird.
favorite? Who is your favorite antagonistic species in Voyager? Then you also like the
I-
Malons, the trash dudes who were polluting space.
Nah. They aren't very memorable to me. I think the Borg, I guess. Like, I think there was a lot of great Borg episodes in Voyager. I still don't super love the Borg. I don't know. Like, I still don't feel like it's the best Star Trek villain, but I liked a lot of their stories in Voyager, especially with Seven, because you have, the Borg and the X-Borg, and there's a lot of cool things that they get to explore with that in Voyager.
Like Unimatrix Zero, and then like
Mhm.
the her little micro collective from that planet when they lost the connection to the collective.
Yeah. So I think they probably were my favorite villains. But honestly, if we want to be real, like the worst villains was the whole crew of Voyager just like taking their sweet time getting home. Like I can't imagine being on this ship as a crew member who has like no say in like how we get home, and they're like, let's make a pit stop at this planet and let's like go explore this random thing,
And
or
they're like,
hey,
"Please."
we have this
you
beacon
shush, we're gonna
probe
watch
that-"
our 3D movies and be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, man, if I was part of this crew, I would be so mad all the time. I'd be just like, can we please go home faster? Like, we are so inefficient. Like,
Yeah.
and I feel like when Seven is on board, where she's like always talking about efficiency, I was like, finally, someone who gets it and someone who's calling them out for their crap. Like, so I really enjoyed that whenever she's like always trying to like, she doesn't even have like a real reason to get them home faster, but she seems to always be working on like a plan to like get them home faster.
like-
and I'm like, the person who has no like
Yeah.
like reason is really the one rooting for them the most.
Evan's like, y'all are useless. Let me do this.
Exactly.
But on the other-
Yeah.
A lot of them thought they'd be dead before they got home, so it didn't matter if they stopped.
Mm,
That's
'Cause
fair.
it was going to be so long.
so long.
So technically, they could live with Starfleet medicine.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
everyone they know is dead at home.
Yeah,
so
I think
it
they
didn't
are.
even matter. They already died. As far
I mean,
as
I think
they
their
knew in
plan
that
is like,
part.
yeah, we're gonna be a generational ship. We have to get some friends for Naomi.
Naomi Wildman will get home.
But
One she's never met, but we won't.
You could also
Tuvok will
argue
get home.
by them still being, like scientifically and diplomatically curious and like still like making friends and still exploring and still doing scientific stuff. They found like all these things that eventually like got them home like way sooner, but they were always like finding like shortcuts here or there.
Yeah, every season there was like a 10,000 light year jump. It seemed.
Yeah.
When I was rewatching it, I was trying to I was trying to add it up and be like, I just have to
how
go.
Many times are you
jumping? Think of it, but.
I did love any time they like were able to contact Starfleet. I was like, thank God they've done something. I think because I really like the episode where it's like a lot of Barkley and it's like he's part of the team, but like that scene at the end where I've always wondered why they wouldn't let Robert Duncan McNeil say something when his father, like his character's father, was there.
Yeah,
just like give a really good look. He's like, oh, it's my dad.
Yeah.
He's shy.
Even that felt kind of realistic to me because he just didn't know what to say, or it's kind of like it was difficult for him to talk to his dad. It sounded like before also.
Yeah,
so.
they were kind of estranged.
I feel like he would have just said the word dad. Like in my head, that's what I would have thought he would say. Just like dad, like hi, I'm here, I'm alive, by the way.
I freeze up like that sometimes, and then later I think like, why didn't I just say this?
Yeah.
So I kind of thought that seemed real, but what were you worried, Taylor, about them if they were going to make it back or not, or like how the show would end, or were you expecting they would get back in the last episode? What was your reaction to seeing
definitely thought they were going to get back. I mean, sometimes when we had like a really ridiculous episode, it'd be like, is this whole thing going to just be like ridiculous episodes and we're never going to get back? Because then I'll be real upset. But I was very thankful that in the last episode or two, I guess it's a two-parter, but they got home. I think it was a little too quick. I don't know if that makes sense. Like I felt like it was a little bit jarring to just be like, I felt like in the episode like right before they were like, and we still have so long to go, and then the finale was like, oh, we're home. And I was like, oh, okay.
It's still weird. Everything about that is weird. The abruptness.
Yeah.
There's always been a lot of people who did not like the ending. When that came out in 2001, a lot of people were complaining about it then.
I would say it's funny, like they see Earth, and it's like you don't even let them touch Earth. Like,
I mean, everyone would have watched the episode on UPN. No one would have not watched an episode of them being home.
Yeah,
if they'd just done it one earlier and then had a sort of an epilogue, everyone would have tuned in.
Yeah, I definitely wanted that. I wanted to know what the characters were gonna do, because I was at the end. I was like, well, what's Seven gonna do? What's the EMH gonna do? Like these characters like don't really have a place like to go back to, and like it would have been cool to see like Naomi Wildman meet her dad, and like
totally,
I don't know, like and Harry Kim is always talking about his parents. Like it would have been cool to see them, you know. So because
I've always wondered, like, they're like half of these this crew was criminals when you left, and clearly aren't anymore. Like, are you like that's gonna be a thing? Like, I'm just curious.
Nope,
like,
they all have to go to New Zealand and sit in the prison colony with Tom Paris. He's going back. I don't know why he's going back. The
Janeway autobiography that they mentioned something that like Janeway threatened to quit because they were like if they pursued any legal action against any of the Maquis crew, and I was like, yeah, that's in character, but I was like, you could have put that in a show.
But right there, that's Firewall though, talking about what happens to Seven later.
Yeah,
it's pretty heartbreaking, but seems realistic to what would have happened.
And they mentioned that about Seven in Star Trek Picard. Seven says that Janeway threatened to quit then if Starfleet wouldn't let her in, but well,
and I want to say one thing. It's like I don't care about Picard season 3. Janeway killed the Borg. Picard dealt with the leftovers. That part of the finale is beautiful, and it works in every way. I don't know.
Yeah,
what do you think about that, Taylor?
the defeat of the Borg Queen by future Admiral Janeway, who came back in time.
Yeah, I liked that. I thought it was. I didn't like the parts where we got like this alternate future and then like rewrite the future with. I don't like time travel. That's like one of my like. I don't know. That's something I kind of have suffered through with Trek. I'm so sorry, but like there's
Janeway
a lot
hates
more.
it too.
There's
Yeah.
a lot more time travel than I expected, and I think I just
That's
think
Trek.
it gets too complicated and too confusing sometimes, and it overlaps with other things, and then it creates all these
Prodigy
different.
says, "Hold my beer," but
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But yeah,
See,
I did like.
I get why time travel is like not everyone's cup of tea, but I love Doctor Who. I'm like, confuse the hell out of me. Let's go. Like,
Yeah. I did like Janeway saving the day. I mean, that was all super great. And I love that it was, many years down. And I think it's cool to have seen her be home and like be like, well, it could have been better.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of funny.
like
But
we
I
should
do
have
like.
got. She was like, actually, now she agrees with you. She's like, we should have got home sooner. I gotta go tell them to stop stopping places.
Yeah, and I liked that they used like the Borg underground railroad basically to get home. I thought that was really cool. Like to bring their big enemy, their big villain arc as like kind of their savior in some way. Like they're a huge part of why they got home so soon.
Oh yeah, thanks a lot, Borg. We're going to use our victory over you to also get home. So.
Thanks for giving us the best character and also our way home.
Yeah, I guess Voyager owes a lot to the Borg.
Yeah.
Before we go talk about the last show we're going to talk about with Star Trek Enterprise, the final Berman Era TV show, it does occur to me that Q is a product of the Berman Era.
Yes.
From the very beginning, Encounter at Farpoint. And the three Berman Era shows that use him, TNG, DS9, and Voyager. Do you have any thoughts on Q's appearances on those shows before we talk about Star Trek Enterprise?
Well, I thought John Delancey did a great job as Q, and there were definitely some Q episodes I really loved and some I really didn't love. I think he works the best. He works the best in TNG with Picard. And I think he works obviously the worst in DS9. I love that Cisco punches him in the face and he never comes back.
Yeah.
I think that is so wonderful.
Like, this is not the vibe for me. No,
he's like, I just want to play. And Cisco's like, not here. Like, go find a different playground.
He's like, we have real stuff going on here? No.
Yeah. And I think it did not so great in Voyager either. And I think that's because they pushed like that Berman Era ick of the relationship stuff where there's like the Q like kind of being creepy with Janeway, and like I didn't dig that at all. And then like there's a whole episode of him like trying to like make a baby with Janeway, and I'm just like, I'm so uncomfortable. Like, and I mean it's just such a weird thing. Like
that's like the only time in Voyager that they treat it as like, what a weird thing for the woman to be a captain. This like,
but to be fair though, he was trying to make it
for her.
Yeah. Q was trying to make a baby with Picard the whole time too, to be fair.
Yeah, that's
At
true.
some point he was like, oh, I don't think this can happen this way.
I gotta go talk to Janeway about it.
Yeah, it just felt kind of weird. It was like, what is like, I don't know. I understand kind of like him being fascinated with Picard, but like I can't imagine like the Q like meeting every single captain. Like, does he really just like have like every single day he goes to a different ship or something? Like, I don't know. Does he know all of Starfleet's captains?
Lower decks kind of suggest that it might be like that, but
I imagine in my head he does that when he's mad at Picard and he wants to make Picard jealous. He's like, I'm gonna go hang out with a different captain today.
Yeah. Well, they did the Civil War too. What did you think of the Q Civil War?
Yeah,
I really liked that.
The Q and the Gray.
Yeah, I don't remember most. I don't know. That one didn't like stand out super much to me.
You got a musket ball.
I remember like the desert like look like this
continuum
and there's like no Q or something. It was just so weird. I don't know. I had a hard time, I think, like understanding, or I guess not understanding, but like enjoying that storyline. I thought it was just kind of odd. But
we had Susie Plaxon as the woman Q, who was Kalar, and a bunch of other cool characters.
She's so good in everything she does.
Yeah.
That's one of the cool things about the Berman era is that there were so many great recurring actors who would come in and play a bunch of different characters. Jeffrey Combs being the biggest one, but also Vaughn Armstrong and. But let's talk about Star Trek Enterprise. So, big change here in the Berman era. All the other shows are in the 24th century, and then with Enterprise, they go back and make it a prequel to the original series. So that caught you off guard, though. That new time period and having to see the more primitive technology instead of like the replicators and all the advanced stuff we were used to.
Yeah, I struggled with Enterprise like a lot. And it's kind of funny. I think this is when I started saying I have beef with Berman a lot. And anytime something really gross or sexist or just cringy would happen, I'd be like,
welcome to being a female Star Trek fan.
That show was really, really hard to watch it, especially season 1, I think was really rough. Episode 1, you get like these gel scenes and just like super, super bad stuff. Like, immediately.
That was Rick Berman at the time in like interviews and stuff before the show came out. He was saying like this is going to be the sexiest Star Trek show ever. I remember like one time he actually said this. He used the term "we're going to push the envelope" as far as like how much sex we can show on TV with this show. But he said like push the envelope. I remember reading that in like a Star Trek Communicator or some interview with him somewhere.
And there was a thing where they were like, well, we don't need to worry about it. We had a woman captain for a whole show.
Yeah.
We don't need to worry about that anymore. We did the
I
feminist
also
thing.
have issues with Enterprise, but it was especially if you go right from watching Voyager to Enterprise, you're like, I was like, how did we regress 20 years?
It definitely felt like that.
TNG in a lot of ways was more progressive than the original series. It's like we're gonna have 2 women, which that's not much of a big jump forward, but that is like admittedly a step forward. Then with like
one gets to wear a uniform.
Yeah, there were 3
that's
women
true.
in the first season, and then they took one.
That's true.
But then, you gotta get rid of one right away. She had pants and everything. Oh god.
But then Deep Space Nine, I think, progressed more, and then Voyager, it's like we're gonna make like half of the cast women, and then with like Enterprise, it's like we're going to step back to only having 2, and also put one in a skin tight cat suit again because 7 of 9 was so popular. So it's like T'Pol has to be like our new 7 of 9.
Yeah,
which is weird because. Yeah, it's terrible they did that to T'Pol with that outfit, but they did make one of the greatest characters ever. Which had nothing to do with the sexiness. Nothing. Other than they cast Jolene, who's sexy, but is an amazing actor.
No, it's some Star Trek is watching really good actors trying their hardest to be like, pay attention to my acting and not what they made me wear.
Yeah, agree.
And Jolene, you pay attention to the acting because it's they gave her great stories.
Taylor, what did you think of the characters and the acting in Enterprise?
I don't know if I really have a character that I'm extremely tied to.
You liked
Enterprise.
Trip a lot.
Not
you liked
Travis
Shran.
Mayweather?
You liked Shran a lot. You liked Travis a lot.
I wouldn't say like a lot though. Like I mean, none of them
didn't
are like
Travis much, but
none of them are like the same level as like Worf and Data and B'Elanna and 7 of 9. Like all of those, I think are so strong and like very like I care about them a lot. And I don't feel any kind of that level with anyone in Enterprise.
Yeah.
Like even though I do like Trip and I feel like it's more of like I tolerate this and he's the best of this group. But if he was like in DS9, he would be my least favorite character. Do you know what I mean? So it's like
the Berman era characters, I think this is interesting to think about it this way, but the TNG characters, they were all created by Roddenberry. Those are all like Gene Roddenberry ideas. Picard, Riker, Troy, Data, all of them. And Michael Taylor, arguably the best thing to ever happen to TNG when he took over the writer's room in season 3. But Michael Taylor was there for the development of DS9 and Voyager. Then when we get to Enterprise, that's like the only time that the characters are just created by Rick Berman and Brandon Braga alone.
And it shows.
That's the show that Rick Berman was the most involved in, that he had the most involvement in the creation of the show, and for the first 3 seasons, he is so heavily involved in the writing, much more so than any of the previous Berman era shows. Deep Space Nine is the one that he's least involved with.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite.
Yeah.
And there's a Michael Killer in there for End of TNG and DS9.
Yeah, the one he's least involved with is the one where like the women, like you get the most women being allowed to just be characters. Shocking.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess like I mean I do think that my favorite characters would have been favorite characters if they had more story, and I think that would have been Hoshi and Travis for sure. But neither of them got like any kind of like really great boost or like really great storylines. Like they had some good episodes. Yeah, and I feel like I guess I just feel like they were just so underutilized that I feel like I can't say that they were like a good favorite character for me, just because I feel like they never even like had full potential. So I don't know.
I don't think this is anything against their acting, because they just weren't given anything to do.
Oh,
they're like glorified extras.
Totally,
for like
agree.
a long part. They're a glorified extra that everyone they're like, oh my god, they're main characters. We should give them some lines.
Yeah, yeah. I really struggled like liking most of the characters, even like just right off. Like I had a really hard time with Archer and T'Pol.
Why did you not like Archer? What was the hard thing about liking him at first?
I didn't like that he was in a rush. I think that really irritated me, like as someone who likes to be planned and like have everything figured out. And he like, you know, they have the Klingon drop. Okay, the first episode of Enterprise really ticked me off. I think I asked you to pause it like 4 times because I was like, 1, really irritated at the pacing, and 2, really confused by how many characters like were being introduced and shot into this like 1 hour, 1.5 hours, whatever. I thought it was very poorly cut, like edited, and I thought it was really confusing.
It's my least favorite Berman era show, but it's like, I mean, I love Emissary, but like next to that, like Broken Bow, I think is like the best. I think it's like the strongest premiere of all of them. But you didn't. I remember you not liking it though.
I was so frustrated because I felt dumb. I was like, "What is going on? Like, am I like not listening? Am I not understanding?" The first time I watched
that, I kind of had time to pause and be like, "Who was that again?" Okay.
Yeah, I was like, first of all, I do struggle with like facial recognition, so that was hard. Like I kind of
recognize people by their head ridges.
I recognize them by their voice usually first, then
I do that sometimes.
And so I definitely struggled with that in season.
Pretty similar looking men on Enterprise.
Yeah,
there are.
Yeah,
what is about the British accent?
Yeah,
thank God for Reed.
Yeah,
and I did have a lot of trouble with the Suliban introductory, and there were so many different set locations for this pilot, and I think I do better if I'm like, oh, I am meeting the characters in the first episode instead of going right into plot, and then we like introduce the characters later.
It is
which
weird.
is kind of what Enterprise did.
Cornfield, and then you're like, what? There's a Klingon there, and
yeah. So I don't know. I struggled with Enterprise.
Just I always thought it was good how like Encounter at PowerPoint is not the best introduction to anything, but I did like how they like introduced like half the characters and then picked up the other half later. So you were like, okay, cool, we can kind of spread out meeting all of these people.
And Deep Space Nine does that too. They don't like Jadzia and Bashir show up later.
Yeah. And I think this is a problem that with pilots in general, because like even like not Star Trek. I remember showing my friend the first episode of Psych, and then he went, I thought your favorite character was Lassiter. Where was he? And I was like, no, that was that guy. And he went, they said, I was like, did they ever say his name? And I went, I think maybe once. And they just expect you to be like, you'll figure it out from them. I went, no, they won't. You have to like say people's names a couple times.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember being confused. Like, who are these people?
Taylor, what did you think when Enterprise really changed format in season 3 and basically did what the modern Star Trek shows did, where it did a season-long arc with the Zindi War.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it did better. I still didn't love the Zindi War stuff. I thought, again, I think they were just too complicated. Like, there was the 4 different species of the Zindi, and then also like the time travel stuff was kind of going on like before that. And I just felt like it could have been streamlined. And I mean, I understand like they're trying to make it interesting. Maybe I'm just want a simpler show. Maybe I'm like
The temporal Cold
asking,
War I did not like.
I don't know why. I
Well,
just felt like I
so
was like, there's too much going on. And
What's shocking? Someone who just said they don't like time travel didn't love the temporal Cold War.
yeah, that was brutal for me. I was like,
Yeah.
man, where are we in time? Like, where is this guy from? And like, which time traveler is this? Like, I had a hard time.
Well, to be fair, you know, Scott Bakula came from 7 years of time traveling, so
Yeah.
he couldn't just go cold turkey. He could die.
Yeah, he was in the
Yeah.
show Quantum Leap that I probably mentioned to Taylor, but I doubt that she remembers or has ever seen. Quantum Leap. Scott Bakula's TV show before Enterprise.
I'd seen all of them except the last episode. My family didn't record for me, and I'm never going to watch it because he doesn't leave home. So,
what I did like in Enterprise with the Zindi War, there was some really fun / kind of bad, like ethically bad, but fun episodes where Archer is kind of like trying to win the war and is like trying to put his foot in, like,
I'm gonna airlock you.
Yeah. What is that episode where they like make this fake shuttle pod and he has like that Zindi guy?
He has
and they're
Degra. Degra is captured, and he's like, let me disguise myself as your prisoner buddy.
Yeah,
and...
like extreme gaslighting. And like,
yeah, totally extreme gaslighting.
Star Trek, extreme gaslighting.
Yeah, that was a really fun episode though. Like, it was really fun to watch. But again, like, there were so many, like, I think that was another reason I didn't like Archer so much, is his like ethics were like twisted. Like, I think he made some really bad calls in a lot of his episodes. And I think that does come from like not having like Starfleet and not having like that prime directive. Like, he's going straight into this like cold turkey and doesn't have any rules or anything. So they're figuring this all out. And I think that was really hard for me to swallow, because I feel like I want a very ethical captain because I'm used to it from our other shows.
And I told you, but at the time it was very frustrating, as I was. It was very much like kind of embracing the cultural currents of like the Bush administration and the war on terror and like the war in Iraq, which
torture's good.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate.
I am curious because we were talking about captains having to make like more morally questionable choices, and I don't think we talked about like Cisco during the Dominion War at all when we were talking about Deep Space Nine. I was curious, like, what, like, my favorite Star Trek episode is in the Pale Moonlight, because I think Avery Brooks is just like amazing in that episode. But I was curious what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, you might have to remind me of exactly that episode. And
that's
I can live with it.
Yeah.
We were just talking about this last night when he.
I know, but is this the Romulan one?
Yeah.
Yes, when he gets the Romulans to join the war effort.
Okay, that was pretty messed up. But I mean, it was kind of like.
But they treat that as like they acknowledge it as like this huge transgression.
Yeah, they're like, this is probably the worst this man will ever do.
Yeah, but it was kind of like,
and that monologue is, oh my god,
it's so good.
Yeah, I see, and this is why I really want to rewatch the show straight through. I feel like it's also been a minute since I've seen like the full episodes of DS9 like together in groups. Like, I think we finished DS9.
It's true. You've had first Star Trek, but have you had second?
I can.
No,
you gotta watch it again.
I've watched a couple of episodes a few times. We've seen the movies a lot because they're just like on in the background all the time.
Yeah, we put them on in the background sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
Compared to like a lot of when I was watching Deep Space Nine, I kind of knew of some stuff. That episode I didn't, like, no one had, like, I had not had that episode spoiled for me at all. And I remember just like watching it and then being like so transfixed by Avery Brooks and being like, oh my god.
Oh, I could, just listening to him. Oh, yeah.
But Taylor, you seem to agree with the general consensus that that Enterprise has a great fourth season when Manny Koto takes over the writing.
Yeah, I think it does get better.
So the season that Rick Berman had The only episode that Rick Berman was involved with in season 4 was the
finale.
series finale.
Which was my least favorite episode
That's
of
so
Enterprise.
Miss Taylor. The rest of Trekdom loves the horrible ending of. No, just kidding.
What? You
Yeah.
didn't like the very confused ending where they're like, "This happened during TNG." Don't pay attention to these actors who are obviously like 10 years older.
Yeah. Yeah, that was honestly the worst finale. I was like, we were watching it. I mean, the fat one like comes on screen and I'm like, what show are we watching? And then was very offended
I'm a
for
chef now.
the actors. I felt like as soon as I realized what was happening, I was like, if I was an actor and saw this script for the show and this was the season finale, I would be out of my mind upset. Like,
Yeah.
They knew
like,
they were
just-
canceled. So
it's just,
I mean,
it was
they
so
sort of phoned it in.
disrespectful, I think. Like, if you're gonna like have your show send off, like honestly, the 2 episodes that were before the TNG episode were the best way to end that whole show.
Yes, they were.
And like they really
Everyone agrees with you.
I think
Everyone agrees with you.
I think they should have put that finale. Like, I think it was a fine episode, but not as a finale. Like, they could have moved it to like a mid-season finale, and it would have been fine.
Yeah.
But
I think
for it
Star
to be
Trek
the show end was bad choice in the lineup.
Star Trek should learn from.
You didn't
Sorry.
want the end of Enterprise to be about Riker, a character you didn't actually like that much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that was hard.
And
I was like, what is he
also
doing
got
here?
so tired of holodeck episodes. You were like burnt
Yeah.
out on the holodeck. So you're like, why were we back on the holodeck on the
Yeah.
Enterprise D, the ship I don't like?
Yeah, because that was one thing I was excited about with Enterprise is I knew there wasn't going to be a holodeck at all because it's too advanced. I was like, oh, freaking finally. Like, I don't have to like sit through like these dumb like Sherlock Dixon episodes or whatever. Like, I can just like have like an actual show.
Yeah,
So-
it was so fun watching Star Trek with you because I would hear so many things that like I used to hear like when I was growing up. Like I remember like reading the letter forum in Star Trek the magazine in the 90s, and people were like, why are we doing James Bond in the holosuite on DS9 or like Fairhaven on Voyager? I'm tired of these holodeck episodes. Like, how can it break so often? I hate this.
I know. Yeah, every time I was like, man, here we go again. They're going to get stuck on a holodeck episode. And it was just like, I don't know, especially in Voyager. But I mean, to be fair, like in Voyager, they're like,
There was a reason
on the
sort
ship
of
the
in
whole
Voyager.
time
Yeah.
trying to get
You're
home. Like, how do you fill your time? You have all these.
You got to
holodecks.
delete the wife and and have a good
Yeah.
time somehow.
Yeah, that was So I did like some of the Enterprise technology was cool. Like some of it I thought was really frustrating.
How do you feel about grapplers?
I love
I can't
grapplers.
say it on the stream, but whenever Archer was like, release the grappler for the first time, I was like, what the is a grappler? And he was like, you're about to find out. We're going to use it a lot.
I don't think he
I'm
said
with
release
Boimler.
the grappler, but he should have. I love that. Let's make that a thing. Hashtag release
Wait.
the grappler.
That sounds a lot like Clash of the Titans for some
Yeah.
reason.
I know, it sounds like release the Kraken.
I mean the grappler.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of fun. Like it took me a minute because I thought it was almost comedic because it was so low tech. Like in Enterprise, it was kind of like frustrating because you're just like, man, like just in like a little bit more time, you're gonna have a transporter you can use all the time, and like I don't know, like
Tractor beam.
tractor beams and
Tractor.
it's yeah. So it's I don't know, it was just really awkward and. I mean,
They seem a little ridiculous sometimes when they're like, "Oh my God, we're gonna take the ship's engines all the way up to warp 5. That is so fast! It is insane to be traveling this fast at warp 5."
And that's the first warp 5 before they
Yeah.
changed the scale.
Yeah, that's not getting in. That's not even
I-
getting into the warp factor
That
scale.
The warp
changing.
14 or whatever.
Yeah,
from
yeah.
TOS.
That feels like when you're watching like a movie and they're like there's like a movie set in like the 80s. They're like, one day there's gonna be a computer that can fit in your hand, and they're gonna be like, that's so silly. And you're like,
yeah.
Or like
it-
Austin Powers is like, I demand $1 million. And they're like, wait, no.
yeah, go up.
I doubt Taylor's seen Austin Powers. Probably like went over her head.
I'm so old. But it's a lot like Armand Bashir. You should watch it.
But before we end, what were some?
I have one more question though.
Oh, go for it.
I need to ask what Miss Taylor thought of. I think everyone else's most beloved episode of Enterprise, Carbon Creek.
Okay, that one's not bad. I liked that episode.
Oh,
that's
fighting
the-
words almost.
Wait, this is the one where T'Pol's great grandma lives in
that's the-
the world or whatever. In
It's
Earth.
a warm blanket of Trek, and I love visiting it.
I thought it was good. I thought it was very similar to the Voyager episode where Janeway's great aunt something that looks
Yeah.
exactly like her is
With the weird
in
spire,
Missouri or
millennial
something.
spire.
Yeah, the Millennium
Yeah.
Gate.
Yeah.
Gate. That's what it is.
But yeah, no, I didn't mind that
I
episode.
liked
actually
Carbon
think that-
Creek a lot more. Which one did you like more?
Oh, I like Carbon Creek more.
Yeah,
I
me
like the
too.
other one.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of stuff I know in season 4 of Enterprise that you like that I want to ask you about like before we end. But like,
Okay.
can you think of anything else off the top of your head that you liked before getting into season 4?
Well, I liked the Vulcan change. I think that helped.
That was
a
in
lot.
season 4.
Yeah, that helped a lot.
But they kind of explain why the Vulcans suck, like why they like tell lies all the time, and then you
Mm-hmm.
get like the original series, and Spock is like a Vulcan cannot tell a lie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought all that was kind of what is that called? Like when they're like backtracking a little.
Retconning.
Retconning. Yeah. So I mean it works because I like how they took the Vulcans after that, but I think it frustrated me more that the Vulcans were so out of character in Enterprise.
What about Brent Spiner? When Brent Spiner showed up as a Soong ancestor,
As
I
a
mean-
Soong? Oh my god!
I know.
Who's this guy?
one of many, but
I was like, this guy's genes are strong. Like,
They
he looks the
really
same.
are.
Yeah,
I-
that was fun. That was a
Or
nice
are they all
surprise.
clones? That's another.
would say
We're never sure if they're just
a
clones themselves
friend
or what.
of mine who has now watched more Star Trek, but her mom was watching Enterprise, and she just like texted me. She's like, "Why is Data but not Data in this episode?" And I was like,
Reasons.
It's like an ancestor of like his creator, and his
That's
creator
Data's
was,
dad.
Yeah, it's like. But
we get that Romulan stuff too, where they're like the Romulans are using the Hollow ship, and it ends up kind of uniting the Federation founding races together. So we have Shran and the Andorians, sitting down with the Tellarites and Vulcans, and I don't know if you had any strong feelings on that arc in season 4. I don't know what was your favorite Enterprise moment or favorite like episode or storyline or anything?
I'm like racking my brain. I feel so bad.
They go to the mirror
I can
universe.
say something while you think. So, I really loved what they did with the Vulcans throughout it, because the Vulcans are sort of high and mighty throughout the rest of Trek, and Enterprise shows that they're very talented and smart, but they were kind of not above lying and being duplicitous to get their way. And I
Yeah.
thought that was a really interesting development for the whole species.
Yeah, the Vulcans had to grow and develop
I-
also.
Yes,
along
I
with-
really
along with
like that when they're
humans.
spying on the Andorians, and then they're like, when they burst into the monastery and then they find the listening post, they're like, "What?" And then the Vulcans just kind of turn around and stare at them like, "Oh my God, there's humans here." I thought that was kind of brilliant, and it kind of explains why they're being dicks, because they're friends with humans, but they're kind of frightened of them. And I thought that was kind of wonderful, even if certain episodes seem weird. But
What would be like your Enterprise highlight? Like anything.
Man, my brain has just like decided to go
Shran's
blank.
antenna for sure.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
gotta
Oh, that's
love-
a really cute edit, like where Archer is silhouetted by him, or and then wow, I'm not having very good time like speaking right now.
Yeah.
I'm
That shot
flustered.
in season 3 when Shran's on the view screen and you see like the antenna poking around Archer's head.
Yes, I think that was cute. I did like a lot of the Andorian stuff. I liked Strand, like always like going eye for an eye with Archer. He's like, I saved you this time, you save me next time, and like having that kind of relationship was fun. Because every time they were even, like someone would break that and they'd be like,
Yeah.
we're even, and then next time it's like, well, I saved you, so you owe me. So I think that was
Combs
kind
just
of
got
fun.
better with every role. It's
Yeah.
just, it was
I guess-
amazing.
I guess that is a good question. What's your favorite Jeffrey Combs role?
Yeah, or at least like
Yeah.
from the Berman era.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Wei Yun, honestly. I think that was
Okay.
like one of my
I think that
favorites.
might be my favorite too.
And-
Another great villain from Deep Space
Yeah,
Nine.
that's
Speaking
true.
of
Yeah.
that show having great bad guys.
I think that was just so fun that like every time Wei Yun was killed or died or whatever, he was recloned and there was another Wei Yun.
Mhm.
Like I love too that in like season 7, they kind of insinuate that Damar has killed at least 2 Wei Yuns. And I think that's hilarious. Like
This is
Wei
the
Yun
last
has to
one.
work with
Wei Yun
Damar.
tells Worf when Worf kills one of them. He's like, "You should have killed me. There's only one of me."
Yeah.
Or like he's like laughing. He like laughs about it. Like after
Yeah.
Worf kills Wei Yun, like Damar is like laughing about it. You know.
Yeah. I kind of loved Damar at the end. He was really funny. Like he gave like
Damar.
so many bad moments with him, like where you're just like, man, this character is boring and kind of sucks, and he's just going along with it, and he's just apathetic. And then like in his last few episodes, where he's just like over it, like he's you know, like, he's like, you know what, we'll just we'll join the rebellion, whatever, and like just decides to go off the rails. I loved that. That was super fun.
Well,
sorry to go back to DS9.
Oh, no, you're good.
Well, we probably need to wrap up, but we ranked your Berman era movies. Just to recap on those, you said First Contact was your favorite, and then second favorite, which was not nearly as good, was Generations, and then under that you'd put Nemesis, and then Insurrection way at the bottom.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With the Rick Berman produced TV shows, it sounds like Deep Space Nine is at the top.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Number 1.
who is second place?
Probably Voyager.
Yeah, you said
and
you
then
liked Voyager over TNG.
TNG, and then Enterprise is last.
And then Okay. So.
Yeah, honestly, spoiler alert, but Enterprise is last on all my lists.
But there's still stuff in there that you did enjoy, that you did like.
Yeah,
it
but
sounds like
not
it was
as
your
much.
least favorite Star Trek show so far. Or but we will talk about the modern. We didn't say anything about any of like the modern shows tonight, so you've seen all of those as well, and you watched them in a very like quick sequence, you know. And we watched those in release order, so we did like 2 seasons of Discovery, and then a season of Picard, and then a season of Lower Decks, and then back to Discovery, and we bounced around like that. So
did you just have to like 5 episodes of Prodigy? Wait a year, then you get 5 more episodes of Prodigy.
Wait, did you watch season 2 of Prodigy in a day though? That's the
that's the way you have to watch it.
That's what we did, and we suffered.
But Taylor and I were watching like Berman Era Trek, like when Prodigy season 2 came out. So there's like one day where it's like, I'm gonna go
first.
Yeah, like you don't want to watch it yet. You want to wait and see it in release order. But I'm gonna go watch like all 20 episodes of Prodigy season 2 today. Bye. That was so
it
exciting.
hasn't been a year. It seems like that was years ago.
But they were bringing back characters that you liked from Berman Era Trek that we'll talk about next week. So looking forward to that.
No, I watched all of it in a day while working that day. So
wow.
Working that day.
Yeah, okay. It was the week of 4th of July. No one was there.
I was punched in, damn it.
Yeah. Well, the thing was, my plan had been to, as soon as I found out whenever Prodigy would come out, I was going to take that day off, only for it to be the week of 4th of July, and I had already said I'd be the person in leadership that would stay at the office. Beyond, and I was like, God damn it! Like,
yeah, Taylor has a lot of thoughts on Prodigy as well as Discovery and Picard and Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds. So we will be unpacking those next week. But thanks everyone who is able to join us live tonight on Friday, and thanks everyone else watching or listening to this later, and please come back next week. But we'll go ahead and sign off, but until next time, as always, Live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fathery on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.